Today's podcast, September 11th. Welcome back to the podcast, Grayson County. I'm Lieutenant Jeremy Cox with the Grayson County Sheriff's Office. So, it's September 11th, 2025. So today we are talking about 9/11. You know, a lot of times we ask, or people ask, do you remember? Do you remember where you were? Do you remember what you were doing? I've had this conversation many times where, I've talked about where I was on September 11th. I was sleeping on the floor of my sister's house in Lubbock, Texas. She was getting ready to move, and we had gone there to help her pack up, and we just arrived late the night before, and so we were sleeping in a little bit. We were going to start packing boxes and loading them up that morning, and all of a sudden my phone started going off, and I just happened to have one of those Nextel phones that had the little push to talk feature, and so all of a sudden you hear these chirping, and then I can hear my friend and coworker screaming into the phone, telling me to wake up and watch, what's on TV. So finally I get the phone, I find it, I get the phone, I radio him back on the phone, and like, what's going on? And he says, turn the TV on. And I'm like, well, what channel? And he says, it doesn't matter. And I turn the television on there in the living room of my sister's house, and the thing I see is footage of a plane striking the World Trade Center. And at that moment you knew, like, the world was going to change. Like, this was devastating. So lots of things transpired that day for so many people, and then so many events since then. Things to think about, of course, is all the things that have happened since then, but then also the lives that were lost that day. Nearly 3,000 people died as a direct result of the terrorist attacks. But since that time, over 4,000 people, first responders, have succumbed to illnesses or injuries related to the recovery efforts that happened. I've got a friend who, I've talked to many times about that, who was also in law enforcement at the time, and they were ready to go. They were ready to be deployed. They wanted to go to New York and help, and their administration for their organization told them, no, you can't go. You have to stay here. And they've been like, I'm glad that I didn't get to go, because just imagine the things that you would have inhaled. You don't think about those things. Every first responder, on that day wanted to be there, and just run headlong into that situation, just like so many did. But you don't think about those long-term effects. And so, on this September 11th, there are so many things to take into consideration, when it comes to those events that day, the attacks. But most of all, what we ask Grayson County is that you think about how you felt as an American that day. America was more united on that day than most people could remember in modern history. So remember, Grayson County, we're Americans, and we need to respect one another and care for one another. And don't wait for the tragedy to happen to realize this. Make it every day. Live it every day, so that we don't have to wait until the bad thing happens to come together as a nation. we are just together as a nation. So we're going to keep it short today because there's a lot of things to think about. And Grayson County, we want you to reflect on those days, remember those families, remember those so many affected, pray for them, and most importantly, Grayson County, stay safe.